No, I will. I'll send it.
All right, so good evening once again, everyone. Um, we have been on pivot table, and by the grace of God, we'll be rounding up Excel tomorrow once I'm able to conclude the pivot table aspects tonight. So if you remember, I did explain that pivot table is one of the must use statistical analysis powerhouse or function when it comes to analyzing particularly business data that we've seen with the few aspects of it we have discussed. You can agree that it's actually a flexible function that can easily use for summarizing data. Then another thing we have also discovered about the pivot table is that it's it does not require writing of functions. So we are able to answer so many analysis questions without writing a single function. So we are still, this is where we stop in our last section. What we are trying to do is developing a dynamic and interactive dashboard. Or let me rephrase, developing a dynamic and an interactive data analysis dashboard. And I explain the importance of this type of dashboards when it comes to the field of data analytics. That the dashboard is made up of different report models which are designed to actually help us to identify trends, patterns, and outliers that will form part of our conclusion, which will be used for smart decision making. So far, so good. We answered a lot of questions. On this report, we answered analysis question that says, what is the total sum of total profit generated? So if I may just take us to the data, because understand that those of you that are joining were not in that last class, and that is the reason why I'm taking my time just to bring us to the same page. Now, this is the Amazon data set we have been working or we are using to create our dashboard pivot report. So we summarize all the value here. The first question we answer was a single metric function question, which requires us summing up all the values we have in total profit column, which we actually answered from our dashboard using what I describe as pivot card. Pivot card. Remember, I explained that pivot card, they are used to display single analysis metric. So like you are not comparing variable. You are simply just saying that the total of this is the total of that is this. So that is what we did here. So here we answer another single metric question, which says we should sum up the total revenue generated from all the country and also the region. And then here we answer another single metric question, which says we should sum up all the total cost. Then, of course, I know there is another one we answered here. Then after that, we now started answering. We started answering categorical question. That is question that has to do with comparing the sum of values against unique variable in your data. So the question we answer here was, the organization haven't analyzed that the total profit generated from all the sales is 44 million, and this, we decided to break it down by trying to know how much of this amount each of the region actually contributed. So as you can see, the value you have here is equals to this. So which means that this one is like you are detailing, you are breaking it down, you are performing categorical or comparison analysis so that the company will know which of the region they are to invest more of their capital. Because from what you have outputted, it shows that Sub-Saharan Africa generated the highest profit, followed by Europe, and then the least among them is North America, if I am not getting it wrong. So this will have a way of influencing their decision. And how will it influence their decision? It will enable them to know how to distribute their capital to the most, location or region where their products are most sold. So that is one thing we did. Then here we answer another categorical question, but we move from single criteria to multi-level criteria. As you can see, if I collapse this, the first question that we answer here was, we are to summarize the total revenue generated per the region. Here we summarize total profit. Now, we were further asked that as data analysts, yes, you have already outputted this as the total revenue generated from Asia region. But the company wanted to know the breakdown of this amount per their sales channel. So this particular company have two different sales channels. That is, transaction is either performed online or offline. So they needed to know, want to know the percentage, the amount that was generated from each of these unique sales channel. So that is why we added the sales channel here. So I believe you must have gone through the video to know how we arrive at this. Then I also explained that you can actually expand in order for you to answer the second part of the question. Because the first part of the question simply says, give us the total revenue per what region. The second part of the question says, break this value down per sales channel. So which you need to get by expanding your report. You can now see that offline, out of this value, offline generated this value, and then online generated this. So like I advise us that as data analysts, our role is not just to display value. We need to also observe. We need to study the report we are getting, okay, so that we can be able to put together our conclusions that the company actually needs to make decision. So in this kind of analysis you just did here, you are expected to put in writing, either your PowerPoint or in any editor you are using, your observations. So if you will observe that between the offline sales channel and the online, you see that what the offline generated more profit. So how will this actually influence the organization in terms of decision making? Yes, it will. This has generated an insight that will guide them on which of this channel they have to probably improve now that they have identified that this channel is generating more profits. Okay, so just to give us an insight to how you are expected to explain your finding. So quickly, we have few things to conclude. We are looking at pivot slicer, in case you want to write pivot slicer. So I have ended the revision. Now we want to forge ahead, and we want to bring in what we call pivot slicer. Pivot slicer. So let me start with a simple definition of what slicer is. I think I should have it in one of my slides. Let me see if I have it here. No, it's part of what I plan to cover. Okay, but I don't have it. Let me see. I think I should have it. Okay. This is not the slide. No problem. So let's quickly look at the definition. What is a pivot slicer? A pivot slicer is an interactive filtering tool. A pivot slicer is an interactive filtering tool used in pivot table to filter data and narrow down the information displayed. So what are the key words in that definition? Narrow down and also filter. Now, from the beginning of this training, I have explained to us how you can actually filter or filter as one of the data selection method is. I told us then that filter means you are separating, you are displaying certain category of information from your entire data per time. That is the role filter plays. And the reason why we use filter is that it makes your data assessments seamless. It makes it very simple because at some point it hides certain information that you don't really need at that moment in order to allow you to focus on what you actually need. Okay, so when we say pivot slicer, it's like an advanced filter. Now, but the difference between this filter in pivot table and the regular filter we know is that you see all these reports that we have here, we will insert a slicer. In other words, the role of the slicer, so this is going to be seen as a report model. This is another report model. This is another report model. This is another report model. And this is another report model. Now, which means that when we say model, we are talking about structure, which are used by data analysts to present their findings. So this structure is called tabular structure, which is the best used structure for categorical and comparison analysis. Now, this is another structure. This is what we know as graphical structure, which is also used to present finding, particularly when the emphasis is on identifying patterns, trend, and outliers on time. That is the reason why we use graph as another insight presentation model. As you can see with this graph, with the bar, you can easily tell which of the region is outperforming compared to if you are to interpret it with your table, you may need to start comparing each of these values to this before you come to a conclusion on which of the variable or region is doing better. Okay, so I just want us to be reminded on this model. Now that we understand that, why do I want to bring in my slicer? The slicer, don't forget that each time I use the word slicer, I want you to equate it to what? Filter. If you understand filter, then you should always know that slicer is working on that same word concept. Now, I'm supposed to duplicate. Okay, I'm supposed to create different model just because I want to answer different analysis questions from these ones that I've already answered. But instead of me regenerating this just because I want to answer those questions, I want to use slicer so that slicer will use the same model that I've already created to answer what different questions dynamically. So that is the essence of a pivot slicer. It's saving us from duplicating model. Okay, and it's just like currently this model is analyzing the total profit per region. Now, supposing you are asked that use this same model to analyze total profit generated from this same region, but for only a particular item type. So you see that will have prompted you creating another model just to answer that question. But with the help of my slicer, I will use the same model to output that result. So quickly, let's quickly discuss some of the benefits of pivot slicer. Some of the benefits of pivot slicer. Number one, easy filtering. You can easily use it to filter, right? Pivot slicer provide a simple and intuitive way to filter data. That is one of the benefits. The second benefit of pivot slicer is interactive. So what does that mean? Pivot slicers are interactive, allowing users to exploit different data points and see the results in real time. Let's look at another benefit of pivot slicer. Multiple filter options. So it grants us multiple filter options. So what does that mean? Pivot slicer can be used to filter data based on multiple criteria, which we are going to see in a moment. I just want us to have a good background on what this particular function is. So the fourth benefit of pivot slicer is visual representation. Visual representation. What does that mean? Pivot slicer provide a visual representation of data, making it easier to identify trend and patterns. Okay, so now that we have it understood, let's quickly delve into the application of the pivot slicer. Now, before you can use the pivot slicer, you must have created all your pivot reports, just like I've done now. Okay, that is the criteria, because you are bringing it to slice to filter across reports, which means you must have created at least one or two reports that is going to slice or drill through. Now, you must select one of the reports. So in this case, I've selected this report, because if you don't select any report, you are not going to see this particular header called analyze. Let me step out so that you can still look at this place. Once I step out, you will notice that you can no longer find those header, which simply means that those header we're seeing, they are as a result of a report selected. So please take note of that. You must select a report before you can apply the pivot slicer. Now, after that, you proceed to analyze. So from analyze menu, you click on insert slicer. So once I click on it, it will automatically call out all the headers in my data frame or in my data set. So with the assumption of you choosing the criteria for the filtering or for the slicing. Okay, so this is where you need to bring some creativity into play. For example, you need to know what exactly do you want to get across this report. That is what will determine whether you are to filter based on region, or you are to filter based on country, or you are to filter based on what item type, or even based on what sales channel. Now, this is the simple logic. Try as much as possible not to use your pivot slicer to answer the same question any of your reports by default has answered. Here, the pivot, this particular report have answered the question of summarizing total profit per region. So why will I filter per region? You can see it. Why will I filter per region? So that is disqualified because I'm getting the breakdown per region already. Now, there is no report here that talks about dates. There is no analysis here where you give a breakdown of sales per date. So which means that I can use date. In other words, I can be asked that, okay, we want you to filter transaction or profit realized or made for a particular date, which is a very valid analysis task. Now, there is no analysis here that talk about item type. So which means that what? This is also good. Now, the only place where I mentioned sales channel was in this particular report, but it wasn't mentioned here. Now, I can use the sales channel because that sales channel was used as a sub analysis question, not the main analysis question. That is when I use it here. Okay, so now how will I interpret it? Now, the report you are given here is the total profit generated per region. Okay, now the two sales channel, their values are in any of these values. So if the company wants you, okay, maintain this same list of region, but let the value that will display here be for only what? Online transaction. So I can use this. So at least I have been able to identify 1, 2, and 3 as my possible slicer criteria. So let me just start with this. So once I click here and then I click OK, so you can see the slicer. So this is the slicer. So what I'm going to do, the slicer should form your design. It should be part of what you are using to decorate your dashboard. Okay, so if that should be the case, you can see where I am placing it now because I discovered that this place is open, so I have to fill it up with my slicer. But another challenge I have is that based on the criteria that I'm using to filter or to slice, I have just 2 unique values. So there is no need for me to have it this long. So I can just reduce it and keep it more concise like this. Okay, so now if I select offline, I want you to watch what is going to happen on or across the report. If I click here, so you can see that this report have changed its output. So the current output now, what I am analyzing on this report is quite different from what I had here before. So we simply mean that I have used the previous model to present another finding without me having to duplicate this somewhere else just because I want to answer this same question. So these are the importance of using slicer that I have highlighted before. Okay, so now if you look at this now, the report you are giving here now, if I'm to interpret it, the question have changed.
the analysis question I just answered by clicking on this offline is that what is the total revenue generated per region where said channel is equals to offline? That is the question you just answered. But meanwhile, the initial question you answer does not or did not specify whether it should be for only offline or online. So if I click here now, you see that what the values have changed. And as the values are changing, you will notice that what the graph you created or the graph that that particular report is attached to or that was created from is also what? Dynamically changing. So let me put it very close to it so that you can see it. So if I click on offline, you see that what? As this table record of values are changing, the graph is also changing. Why? Because this particular table generated what? This graph. Now, we created this graph as subordinate just to help us to easily identify trend and patterns. Okay? Now, another thing I want us to observe is that you notice that as I was filtering, it is only affecting this and this. Why? Because this was the report you selected before you brought in what? The pivot slicer. So now let's quickly look at how do I now connect this pivot slicer to all the reports such that the next time I slice based on offline or online, it will give me the breakdown of what? Only offline total profit, and also give me only what? Offline total revenue, offline total cost, offline unit cost, then offline across all the reports. So that is why we need to know how to connect the slicer to all the reports. Okay, so how do we do that? In case you are writing your step, the topic now is what? How to connect a slicer to all the reports in your dashboard, such so that when next you filter based on a specified criteria, it will replicate it across all the reports. So step number one, select the slicer you want to connect to all the reports. Once you click on your slicer, definitely you are going to see option as a tab. So once you open the option tab, you will see report connection. Now, once you click on report connection, you are going to see the list of all the reports you must have created in the dashboard. Okay, so you see that it is only this one that is active. This very one that is titled Pivot Table 7 is this one. So that was the reason why when I was filtering, it was affecting only this. Now, for me to connect it to all I will do is just to check all the options. So which means that now I am automatically connecting that slicer to all these checked or selected reports. So once I click OK, it's connected. Now, let's answer that question again. Now, look at what you have here. The total revenue, the total profit. I'm just focusing on this so that you understand how to interpret your slicer. Because if you are presenting to an organization, each time you slice, it requires you explaining all over again all your report, because each time you slice changes the values across board. Now, if I slice here now, the initial question is that what? Analyze the total profit generated from all the region. And that gave us what? 44,168,198 probably what? Naira and 40 kobo. Now, that is what you initially analyzed. Now, the question have changed now. The question is that, okay, in this value, we know or we understand that the company has two sales channels. One is offline, the other one is online. So the company wants to know now, in this value, we want to know the generated profits where sales channel is equals to offline. So if I slice now, check what happened. You can see that now it has filtered across all the reports. Now your report have changed. So if, for example, you are presenting to an organization, you start your communication all over. So you start from here, that what you are currently asking now is what? This is the total profit generated where sales channel is offline. Now, when you come to this report, what you are now asking is the total revenue generated where sales channel is also equals what? Offline. Then when you come here, the same thing. When you come here, the same thing. Now, when you come to where you did your categorical or comparison analysis, initially what you did was summarizing total profit per region. But what you are asking now is different from that. What you are simply asking now is the total profit generated per region where sales channel is equal to what? Offline. So as a data analyst that knows that at the end of his or her analysis, there is always a conclusion that will be submitted to the stakeholder or to the CEO to be considered during decision making. As you slice like this, that you get this value, you take down your observation. Now you take note of this value. This is 24 million. This is another value. You write it down. You can just focus on each of the reports and begin to write down your observation. Now, this is the value I got when I filter based on offline. So I'll peg that value down, and then let me compare it with if I filter online. So you can see that you quickly go to your PowerPoint or Microsoft Word or wherever you are documenting your observation. Now, what will be your observation? If I may just focus on this, my observation is that offline, the profit generated from offline is more than the profit generated on online. So I will write it down for the company to what? To know about that. And then there is need for me to also point out the differences. So for me to get the differences, I will just subtract 19 from what? 24. So that they can know the correlation. They can know the margin of dispersion. Okay, so this will help them to know how the profit generated from offline sales is deviated from the one generated from online sales. So there are times that the two values can be competing. You can see that the difference is not much. So this means, or this does not mean that the online is not doing well, because the difference is not really much. Now, had it been after this kind of filtering, you now discover that here is just 1 million, while the offline is that 24 million. Definitely something is wrong with the online. So that is when you will see company changing their strategy immediately, which will lead to laying some staff off in order or reshuffling their staffs so that they can get results. Okay, now after you have filtered based on a particular criteria, how do you now undo so that you can filter based on another criteria? You see this icon, the X, which means what? Clear. So that is how you will normalize your entire report. So once I click here, I have return all the value to my initial default analysis. So I want to pause and ask us if we are actually following. Question, please.
Yes, I'm following. But I have a question to ask. When you said we should write the procedure on how to on how to get the whole table involved while slicing at once. I was looking for biro, so I didn't get that, sir. Please.
Okay.
Paraphrase.
Are you talking about when I asked both to write steps on how we are going to implement the slicer?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the steps are, I said you start by clicking on one of the reports. Let me delete it and quickly go. So now I've removed the slicer. I said you have to select one of the reports before you can activate the pivot slicer. So in this case, I'm using this report. Now, the reason why you must click on pivot report so that you can access this option that says analyze. So after you have selected the report, your next step is to click on what? Analyze. Then from analyze, you click on insert slicer, and then you choose your slicing criteria. Okay, that is where I explain that you have to be, tactical. You have to apply some creativity. Okay, so your slicer shouldn't answer questions that your default analysis has already answered or default model. So that is why I have to compare that there is no question, there is no analysis that we have performed that talk about what? Item type. There is no one that talk about this direct, though we use it here as a sub question, but it's not direct. And then there is no one that also talk about analyzing per date. So at the end of the day, I use just this one, and then I click OK. So that is how I got this. And then I reduce it because I noticed that we have just two unique value as criteria that can be used to filter across the report. Is that clear now? Please, I want to
The
know.
main one I want. The main one I wanted was how to merge all of them so that when you are effective,
good,
all of them at the same time.
good. Now,
That's the main
how
one.
to connect. Now, look at it here. After we have activated the pivot slicer, we discover that each time we slide, it is only making impact on this report and the graph that you created from this report. But we needed it to affect all. So, and I said that is how to connect pivot slicer to all the reports within your dashboard. And I said you select the pivot slicer you want to connect, and then you go to option, then you click on report connection, and then you check all these options. These are the list of reports in the dashboard where you have the pivot slicer. Is that clear now? Have I answered your question? Ngozi, have I answered your question? Please let me know so that I can proceed.
Yes, you have, sir.
All right.
I'll go and try it
Okay,
out.
so that is all. Now, you can actually use multiple slicer across the same set of what reports in your dashboard. Now, here we are going to be slicing based on sales channel. Now, supposing I'm also asked to slice per item type or per date, I can bring in a slicer. So in this case, I want to use this one. You can as well use this again. Then just to access the analyze again, and then come to insert slicer. And then when it brings out this again, you choose another criteria. This time around, I would like to filter across my report based on what? Selected item type. So I'll click here. So now remember what I said. You can see that this one, you have different unique item type, unlike this one that I have just two. Now, if I say, okay, for example, what you outputted here is the total profit generated from all the products sold per region. But now the company wants you to narrow your analysis to clothes. So if I click on clothes now, the breakdown I am getting now is just for what? the total profit generated per region where the item sold is equal to what? Clothes. So I need to also check my trend. What is my trend? What is my pattern? My trend is which one is outperforming. You can see that what Asia is leading here, and the list based on the cloths that are selected, the list here is what? Central Africa, followed by this. You note it down. The company wants to know at the end of your analysis which one is doing better, and then which one is the least. What is the difference between the least and the highest? These are the key information you must try and capture in your executive report, which is your final collation of all your insights. That is what you are going to give to them. They are not going to be seeing your dashboard for them to make decision. Okay, so now another thing again is that if I am asked in this kind of situation where I have multiple unique value that I can use to perform my filtering or slicing, what we are currently outputting here. Okay, let me connect it first. Let's also connect this because I noticed that this pivot slicer is only analyzing this. So how do we connect it? Let me return everything. How do we connect it? The same step. Select it, go to option, click on report connection, and then the same thing, you check all the reports available. Check all the reports available, and then click. Now, the next time I slice per item type, let's say I want to slice this time around baby food. Now check what happened. You can see it now. So across all the reports, what you have now is where the item sold is equals to baby food. So if you have to interpret, like I told us, each time you slice, you must reinterpret all your reports because the values have changed. So this is what we actually meant by dynamic and interactive dashboard using the pivot table. So what you are currently asking here, this was the place where you initially answer analysis question that says, what is the total profit generated from all the items, all the products, which gave us that 44 million. But now you have narrowed that analysis to baby food. So which means that this is the total profit generated where item type is equal to what? Baby food. So if I want to check how much was generated for beverages, you see it now. As you move, all the values are dynamics. They are changing. You can see they are changing. And like I said, this is a serious analysis. Each time you slice, you take your biro or you go to your PowerPoint, then compare what you have now to when you slice with what? Beverage. So that at the end of the day, you open the company eyes that this is the product that is doing better. So when next they want to go and stock, based on your report, they have already know which of the product to allocate the higher percentage of their capital. That is why we exist as data analysts to guide them based on what their data is saying. Okay, now I wanted to show us a concept. Supposing you are asked, because here now this is single filtering criteria, single filtering or slicing criteria. This is when you are slicing per one unique item. Now, if the question says that, okay, now this is what you have for only what? Beverages. Now, please, can you give us the analysis for beverages and what? Baby food at the same time. So what you're going to do is that you hold down the shift button on your keyboard and then you select the next one. You see that right now, I am analyzing two products, two item type, baby food and beverages. This is the total profit generated for both baby food and what? Beverages. If I am asked to add the third item, I will hold down the shift button on my keyboard and tap the next one. So what I am analyzing now is both beverages. Now, please, once you are going beyond two criteria filtering, you have to hold down the control button, no longer shifts. Now, if it is just two, then you can use shift. Now, if I want to add clothing, I will hold down the control button and click on any other one. So the analysis I am presenting right now is, if I'm just focused on this report, is the total profit generated from baby food items sold, beverages items sold, cereal items sold, clothes items sold, and cosmetics. Okay, so if I want to clear everything, I'll simply what? Take it off from there. So please, I want to get a response if that is well taken before I proceed. Quickly. Miss Mercy, is that taken?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So that is all about pivot slicer. Now let's quickly look at the last one, which will actually bring us to the end of the section and also to the end of pivot table. So by tomorrow, I'll be taking us on conditional formatting, which is the last topic. So let's quickly look at pivot table timeline. Pivot table timeline. Pivot table timeline. That is the last topic. Then after that, we will quickly end. I said pivot table timeline. If you are writing timeline analysis, pivot table timeline analysis. So this is another powerful sub function in pivot table analysis. So let me start with the definition. A pivot table timeline is a feature in data analysis tool in Excel that allows users to filter and analyze data based on specific time frame. The keyword here, specific time frame. So I actually found this very useful to me. Very useful, because if you want to analyze history, if your analysis is based on history, you will definitely need what? Pivot table timeline. For example, now let's look at this, our data again. Let's look at this, our data again. You see, we have, because for you to use the pivot table timeline, there must be a header that defines dates or time in your data set. So Adibi, we do not have this. This data is not qualified to be analyzed with a timeline. Because if you are telling us that you want to give your analysis, your breakdown based on time frame, then we must have a column that stated the time each of these transactions were done or performed. So the criteria for implementing pivot table timeline is that your data sets must have dates, feature, or header, or time. So in this case, the whole of this data set, this is the only header that is qualified to be used. Okay, this header and this, because these are the two headers that talks about what? Time or dates. So that is, if you are writing your step, for you to use the pivot timeline, you must access your data and check if you have date or time header. That is number one thing you need to check. Number two, you have to also click on one of the reports, just like we did in the case of pivot slicer. You have to click on one of the reports in order for you to access the analyze as an option. So after that, go to analyze, then you will see insert timeline immediately after the one we just applied now. Insert timeline. Now, when you click on it, it's saying that what? We cannot create a timeline for this report because it does not have a field formatted as dates. So despite that we have that field capturing dates, but it still don't recognize it. So now let's do something. Let's do something for us to get it formatted. So let me just format this as dates, this particular header. So I'll click on it. And then what I am going to do, click on it. So you can see the issue now. What is showing here is what? General. So this is not actually recognized as date. So I have to come here and change it to what? Short date or long date. So I will just change it to this. So now that it is recognized as date, I have to what? Save, and then go back to my dashboard, then go to analyze, then refresh so that it can acknowledge it. So I will select refresh all. Good. So it has been what? Refreshed. All right. Now, if I go back now, it's saying what? We cannot. So that's a serious issue. So let me see if so let's go back again and try to format. Let me see if so what I'm going to quickly do now to save our time, but this will have been the best data set to use for this, but let me still try and see what I can do here. So let me edit this to just what? Dates instead of what? Other dates. So let me also go back to my dashboard and refresh all. So whenever there is an update in the data you use in creating your pivot report dashboard, if you want to capture the new entry, you must go to analyze and refresh. So now let's go back to, okay, let me click. This is, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to clear the format. I'm going to clear the format and reformat the entire data set. Let me see. Let me see if I update this, whether I think I use short dates. Let me, so if this does not go, then we are going to quickly manufacture this so that we can see how the command works. So let me go back to my dashboard and try. Okay, so now to let's try and debug. We might just learn something from that. Let me go back to the data, highlight the entire data, then clear formatting, then come here, see clear all, no clear format. Now, okay, so I expected it to have cleared the format, so let me go and check again. We're trying to see if we'll get it outputted. No. Let me still try again. If I clear all, let me see if I clear all. Ooh, that will clear everything. Let's see. If I try it doesn't work, I have to quickly go and manufacture some dates just to use it to. This is say we cannot create a timeline for this report because it does not have a field formatted as dates. Okay, now let's still give it a try. So let me change this to also what? Date only. So let me check again and see if it will permit us. Okay, so let me try another option. Now, these particular dates, they are not in alignment with the global format. So I'm going to change the settings so that it can be a year, month, and day. So let me see whether that might even solve the problem. So what I'm going to do is to change it from my control panel. So I'll simply go to my control panel. That's your window. I want to change the date and time format. So from here, I will go to clock and region. So once I try this option, if it doesn't work, then we have to quickly manufacture the date and then just to verify how to use the timeline. So select number format, and then you can see that under short date, the short date is corresponding. I think we have year, and then we have what? MM. So the format is correct from here. So probably is from the data. But just quickly, let me create another column. Let's say we are adding it here. Create another column, insert column. So I just want to replicate what I have here just to know. So here I want to name this dates. Then this is 5/28/2010. This is so you can see that it has copied all automatically. So let me go and check now whether this will enable it to. Let me update my entire dashboard, refresh all. So I hope. Wow. This is. Okay, now what I'm going to do is that let me quickly get the raw data and quickly create a different dashboard without formatting it, just to see whether, to know where the issue is. So let me quickly, just to verify things and know where the error is. So let me go back to, where is the folder? Online data analysis. So I just want to go back to the raw data and check something quickly. There's nothing here. This one wasn't saved. Go back. Let me check this. Delete this. Delete this. I just want to use it so. Okay, so let me just to use it to teach us go to insert. Just a quick one. New sheet. Okay. Just want to troubleshoot where the error is. So let me just analyze at least 2 different reports. Summarize this. Summarize total profit per region. I think this is even enough for me to verify what I want to verify, but let me just have 2 of it.
And I have this one here. So I'm dropping this and picking item type. Now, let's add the timeline. Let's add the timeline now. Okay, so you can see it. So you can see that it's working here. So probably we just have to restructure that our data. That will take time, but if you want to do it, what you do is that some of the formatting that we have done wouldn't have been done. That is where the issue is. Let me even check. If you check this report now, we check this report, we have done some formatting already. Where is it here? No? So it could be that all this table that you have already, added here, we have already activated the grid line. So what you do is that please don't format until you have, completed all your reports. Okay, so it's one of the formatting that is actually making it not to be possible, because you can see this is the same data set that I'm using here, the same data set. And as soon as I click on the timeline, then it brought out what the information we are looking for, which are the only two headers that actually qualify for. Are we still together? Let me check, see if I can see.
Okay, Mercy, are you still here? Mercy, are you still
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Okay, are you still seeing
Yes,
my
sir.
video? Are you seeing my video?
Yes, I'm seeing it.
Okay. Just looking for. Okay, now you can see that these are the only two headers in that data set that are qualified for the timeline. That is what we can group the whole of our report based on order dates or shift date, which is history analysis. So let me just use order dates. So once I click, then it comes out like your slicer. It's still an extension of your slicer. Now, it automatically grouped the whole data into months, but let me switch to year. So you can see that what the whole of this data cut across several years, 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, down to 17. So for example, if the company wants to know, based on this analysis you have already got to, they want to know only the total profit generated in the year 2010. So this is the section for it. Just click on it. So what you have here now is the breakdown of the total profit generated for only what? That particular year. Now the same thing, if I hold down my shift button and select two of those years. So what I'm currently analyzing is the total profit generated from 2010 and 2011. Then if I hold down my control key or my shift and select the third year, so you can see how you keep breaking it down per what? Time frame. Now, you can do the analysis per quarter. So in any of those years, we have 4 quarters. Is it 4 of them? We have the first one, the third one. So you have up to here, we have 4 quarters. So you can say, okay, in 2010 only, in the first quarter, you want to know the total profit generated. So you click here. So this is total profit was generated. And as at that time, these were the products sold. Then you can check the second quarter, you can check the third quarter, you can check the fourth quarter. Then you can step into what? The first quarter of 2011, the second quarter of 2011. So all these are valid analysis you will be asked to perform as a data analyst. So far, so good. I have been able to explain everything you need to know as far pivot table is concerned. So if you can actually go through all the videos that I've made so far on this, I don't think you have issue with this. It's just for you to keep developing your creativity concept. Okay? So any question? Do we have question?
There's no question, but I think I have to run it over. They're using a fresh data. Sorry, a
Good.
fresh
Good. Data.
data. Yeah.
Now, before we end the session, there is one thing that we have not done. We have not done formatting, so I'll do a bit of it before I round up the class. But remember that to avoid the challenge, remember the advice I gave you, before you start formatting, like here now, I have formatted the whole of this report with table. Remember that we highlighted them like this, and then we went
Yes.
to
Yes, sir.
this, and then we selected this
all
and
border.
all border. Please do not involve
Yes, sir.
this first until you are done with everything. That is the reason why that timeline was not active on this.
Timeline. Okay.
Good. That was the
Okay.
reason. One of the formats have reconfigured it. So now let's quickly do some formatting because your dashboard need to be, attractive, need to be user-friendly. So all these spaces that I left like this, I will just highlight it, probably down to this, and give it maybe a particular color. So all these spaces like this, you highlight it. So you take your time to design it in order to make your report to stand out. So you can see what I'm doing now. So you try as much as possible to arrange it in a way that everything will look organized. So the whole of this place is empty. Just fill it with this. So this will make your report to stand out. So it's something you can take your time to actually develop. Then at the end of the day, you might need to turn off the default grid line so that you can focus on only the reports itself. So how do you do that? Just quickly click, go to view. From here, turn off the grid lines, then turn off the header if you want. You just have only your reports. At times, it might be neater if you turn off those grid lines so that there won't be distraction of those grid lines at the back of these areas you have already formatted stable. So if there's no question, so this brings us to the end of pivot table. Then your assignment, your project is to come up with something more complex than this. Okay, so I should be able to see how your pivot slicer is coordinating or controlling your entire report or making them dynamic and interactive. The same thing with the timeline. So please, two things I want to watch out for in the project. Timeline should be activated, and then slicer should also be activated. Then make sure you have a user-friendly dashboard. No question, right?
No, sir.
All right. So see you tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Good night, sir.